We are recording. Okay, Kris, I have a question for you. Obviously, Halloween is less than a week away.
hmm
Um, I guess I've got a two-part question. First part question is, did you watch Hocus Pocus 2?
Yes, I did.
I did too. We had it on
Nice.
to earlier tonight while we were on it, like doing computer stuff.
hmm
What did the first Hocus Pocus have like a role in your childhood in terms of like Halloween movies?
Yeah, definitely. I loved it. I can't remember if it was like on TV or we go to the video store to rent it. I know it's Disney Channel, but um, I think it was just always on TV. I loved it.
If you, as a kid, like, what was your go-to Halloween movie?
It was probably Casper, actually,
Casper.
with Christina Ricci.
Yeah, I think we watched rewatched that last year. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good one too. I
Bill
would say that's
Pullman.
probably it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I liked that one a lot.
that is a solid
Um,
one.
what was yours? Was yours Hocus Pocus?
It was not Hocus Pocus. Stephanie's was Hocus Pocus more. Um, I had a few that were go-tos. I'm into all the like Charlie Brown
Oh, The Great
specials, so
Pumpkin.
I always watch Great Pumpkin.
Oh,
That's obviously quite short though. The other ones that I was super into were the Addams Family movies, and particularly not Values, which was also good, but the original, like the Addams Family.
like old school.
No. There's two, right? There's
Okay.
two that have
With
like
Christina
Christopher
Ricci.
Lloyd and Christina Ricci and everything. Of course, she's like the Halloween.
Yeah.
Um, but we have it's the one where Christopher Lloyd is like Fester, but he was
Yes.
like gone for a long time. They do the knife dance and everything. That was my classic that I would watch every
That's a
Halloween.
good one. I like that.
So good. Like I should rewatch that because I bet it holds up. It feels like it would.
I want to rewatch Beetlejuice. That was not a childhood one, but that was a little bit older. Which it would came out when I was a child, and that movie scared me. It was always on in the Costco on the TVs they were selling, and it was always the scene with Harry Belafonte playing where they're doing the Deo jump like dancing around the table, and it scared me so much as like a 6 year old or whatever. But then when I got older, I was like, I want to watch that. And now I feel like it's a Halloween movie kind of. It's
Oh, it
spooky.
totally is.
Yeah.
Comedy Central used to play that one all the time too.
Yeah.
Who's the lead
Catherine
actress in that
O'Hara.
one?
Oh, Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder. That's right. I was like, it's not Christina Ricci again. That would be ridiculous.
No, another goth type person.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Christina Ricci. I think I had a crush on her too.
who he didn't?
Of course. Shall we dive into the episode?
Yes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to This American Horror Story, an unofficial podcast about the FX hit show American Horror Story. I am your host, Tyler Moss, here with my co-host.
Chris Hustad, what's up? And we are not only a podcast, but we are now a video podcast, a vodcast. Do people call it that still? I
I
don't
didn't
know.
know that people called that ever.
I
Is
know
it like a
old
vlog?
people do. Like vlog,
a
yeah.
vodcast. I don't think people say that, but we are on
Okay.
YouTube, so you can check us out there if you want to. Welcome, everybody. This is, of course, our episode 4 about. This is episode 4 of American Horror Story NYC Blackout, is what we're talking about right now. We are recording this back to back with the previous episode, which was Smoke Signals. So we don't have a whole lot of like mailbag type stuff to go through at the beginning of this episode. One thing I will say is I was looking a little bit and just thinking about the history of New York blackouts up until
hmm
this point, which one thing that was interesting to me is that we just had you mentioned in a previous episode that you were watching Only Murders in the Building for the first time.
hmm
Have you gotten to season 2 yet?
No, I haven't started it yet.
Okay, so there's a blackout in season 2 of Only Murders in the Building. So that kind of felt funny that we were having another New York-based show with blackouts. But, as I said, New York history has a history of blackouts, the most notorious of which happened, I believe, in 1977, in which all sorts of violence was occurring, looting, arson. It lasted 25 hours. It was sparked by lightning strikes at a couple of power plants. But there was, get these stats, 3,800 arrests, 1,037 fires, and more than $1 billion in damages. Both LaGuardia and Kennedy Airport were shut down. Commuter train lines were halted, and 4,000 people were evacuated from the subway. So it was a mess in '77. I don't know if there was actually a blackout that occurred in 1981. If so, it was certainly a lower profile blackout than this one. But you
Just
know,
maybe inspiration
it's
for
exactly it's getting a little bit of inspiration. So that's
my
some context.
my power went out last night.
Oh, well, I'm glad you have it back tonight, so we
It
were
was
able to do
spooky.
this.
It was at 7:08 p.m. because I called in the utilities company, which is the city, uh, to let them know. And yeah, it was rainstorm. It wasn't thunder, but it was like wet, windy, stormy. It was right before bedtime for my oldest. And so we got all the candles out and stuff. And it was really fun, but it was actually pretty spooky. She
Did you
kept
get a Ouija board and
Oh hell no. But we did have like little Halloween candles and like lanterns and stuff out, and we had a little campfire. But she kept running up and down those hallways going like, I'm being very careful, Dad. I'm being very careful, Dad. It's dark. It's dark. Scary, scary. Like,
oh,
that's my
that's
girl. But she was brave. Anyway. But yeah, so when I saw this episode was Blackout, I was like, yo, bring it on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, recent reference for you. So into the blackout we go. Before we dive in, I want to say, as always, you can reach out to us at thisamericanhorrorstory@gmail.com with your theories, comments, questions, anything you want to, put forth. You can also DM us on Facebook or comment on our page directly at facebook.com/This American Horror Story. You can find us on YouTube, as Kris noted, at I think This American Horror Story YouTube.
Just look
Again,
up.
linked to our Facebook page.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, um, we're multi-platform these days. So
Yeah.
there you go.
You're not allowed to personalize your YouTube address anymore until you've like been around for a certain amount of time or have so many subscribers or something like that. So we're like it'd be like youtube.com/ a bunch of gobbledygook.
Capital T, lowercase
Yeah,
a,
right.
what I mean?
So the link is on our Facebook page though, so go there to find it, or just search in YouTube. Maybe hopefully we're starting to show up for This American Horror Story podcast.
Yeah, hopefully so. Kris, did you refill your drink between last episode and this episode?
I didn't. I'm just slowly working mine down. So I still got my local cider with a hot cider. Well, it's more like lukewarm now with a little bit of bourbon. What do you got?
You're doing a good job nursing. I finished off my cider with some rye in it this tonight,
Nice.
and I popped open a local beer. So I am rearing to go to talk about Blackout. Do you want to take us into the cold open?
Excellent. Yeah, it is a very quick one. We pick up right where we left off with Gino stuck in the morgue in one of those body drawers, cadaver drawers. He's stuck in there. He's, trying to bang around and draw attention, and Patrick is kind of wandering around the hospital. I think he catches a glimpse of Whiteley and tries to find him, but doesn't. So he kind of uses his detective skills, I'm assuming, to kind of track of where he saw Whiteley and locate the direction and stairwell he was coming from, and then finds himself down in the morgue looking in the exact room that Gino's stuffed away in, and he locates Gino and pulls him out, and boom, we cut to the credits. Not knowing if Gino's alive or not yet, but we quickly find out he did make it.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about with Gino in those drawers is like not just it being freezing, but I have to imagine there's no oxygen in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, to keep it from exposure to the outside air, probably. I don't know.
All right. So, there's a limited time window. So
That's a giant morgue for a hospital. I've been in a morgue at a hospital before, and it was not that big. I mean, maybe it's a giant hospital. It is New York City, so that would make sense. A lot of people die in hospitals, but generally,
I've only ever seen morgues in movies and TV shows, so I don't have that in-person experience.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
I used to work in a pathology lab, and I have to go to the morgue every now and then. Did you know that? Yeah,
it
was sort of creepy, yeah, but not really. I mean, if I was working in the morgue that was in American Horror Story, absolutely.
The twisting path to your background.
I know.
It's great.
I'm all over the
place. This episode was written by Ned Martell again and our friend Charlie Carver, who impressive that he's been involved in the writing of these episodes, because I think the writing's been excellent. I think we both have mentioned that before.
Yeah.
And this episode is directed by Jennifer Lynch. Moving into the body of the episode, back at home, Gino and Patrick are covered in, I think they say covered in fleas. Fleas, ticks. I feel like there's a lot of talk about, small bitey bug-borne disease. And so it's, hard to tell exactly what's happening or where it's coming from. But also it's the hottest day of the year, which is, supposed to be the impetus for the power eventually going out.
This is also the premise for In the Heights, the musical, I think, written by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, I don't think that happened on the same day,
No.
but
People love a good blackout in New York.
yeah. So, Gino's, again, and this is probably, I think you hinted at last episode, but I feel like I think Gino's a good character, but first of all, him and his Patrick's relationship, and then also just kind of Gino's cycle it's starting to feel a little bit like, I don't want to say redundant, but repeated.
Yeah.
As, Gino's back at the newspaper. He's pissed at Adam for like quoting himself instead of writing from his own point of view and not being more, out there on the front lines of the battle. And then he goes to visit Patty LuPone, aka Cappy, at the bathhouse.
This is where I screwed up last of our podcast episodes where I talked all about this.
Well, I mean, they're so interconnected, right? He continues his investigative journey to all the different bars. And I thought this scene was kind of fun though when we first arrive, and they've got the
think it's her
singing Anything Goes. Yeah.
Which Patty LuPone starred in, Tony nominated, and like I looked it up in 1987, I think. So she's kind of known for singing that song.
So she knows what she's looking for when she's looking for somebody who can sing a good rendition. He gets the job, So
well, I know. I like that it looks like she's going to be like, nah, you're not good enough. Get off my stage. But she's like, you're hired. Get off my stage.
It was good.
He was like very flattering to her. She was actually kind of polite. So I was a surprise.
Right. Gino approaches her pretty confrontationally. He feels like
he comes hard. Yeah, Gino is unraveling. He's unraveling.
You can feel the urgency, I guess. And maybe it's supposed to be kind of a slow boil to the point where now he's like pouring over the sides of the pot. Sorry, excuse me. But he basically says that this is also when she kind of insinuates that some of her funding comes from a shady place, because she's like, do you know who I work for? Right. Indicating also that like they could do some harm to you. But, he threatens to spotlight kind of her business and like what happened with, I think it was
the missing
Freddie went in the bathhouse. But they kind of have a back and forth, and he finally gets her willing to agree to speak on the record.
Well, he's finally, this is what I said last episode, he's finally honest and says like, hey, we need your help.
We need your help. We need your help. Because it's like our voices are not enough. We need outside voice. I mean, I say outside voices, but I think he means beyond beyond directly just the gay community. We need other business leaders and stuff who I guess he feels like wield more power in the city. Right.
Exactly. And she finally like also buys in after they talk about their Italian and Sicilian heritage.
Yeah.
Cute.
Calabrian, is that what he said?
Yeah.
And they get a drink. And he basically, she's like, I don't even know what I can do for you. And he's like, just speak on the record. So, she goes into talking about just how much violence she's seen become rife in the community and how that's changed. And her quote that she ends up putting on the record is something along the lines of, she's a concerned business owner and is bothered basically that the police are not doing a better job to investigate this.
It's a pretty powerful quote.
It is, and I don't know that we know yet whether or not she holds that much sway. But it's still obviously a step forward to start to like expand the message beyond just, Gino and his newspaper and Adam, and I mean, stuff like that. Meanwhile, Patrick and the partner he's with, they are at like I guess it's like a high rise. It's not a high rise. It's just an apartment building.
Apartment complex.
Where a murder's taking place or a death is taking place. And that's when we go in and see, as we go up the stairs, we see the artist.
I think his name was Derek. But I can't. I think I caught that toward the end of this episode, but
we see him very upset coming down the stairs in handcuffs, being arrested. We go up into the room. There's a terrible smell, and of course Hans is on the bed. All sorts of like strange markings on his body. It sounds like some of it is just like contusions. Other stuff is like maybe the cat started to eat his decomposing body, which is very nasty.
He's got sores. Like, it's a whole thing.
Did this
7?
Yes, exactly what I was thinking too. I was going to ask you read my mind. I was going to ask if this meant to be something else. Pretty gruesome. Though,
I mean, especially because he's a performer and he had his like face on still, that it was just such a creepy, almost posed body. it gave me vibes of a cop show where they're investigating a serial killer, and I loved it.
Yeah. And as soon as, basically, well, Patrick, first of all, pushes for like, not them basically not holding who will call Derek in custody. He's like, this guy doesn't have anything to do with it. I met him before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we start to see in this episode Patrick more actively fighting for his community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including after everybody else leaves the room, he calls Gino in. I mean, we don't know that for sure, but it's insinuated that he does that just to leak the information because he gets called out on it by Mac later.
Right.
Back at Sam's apartment, we see Theo return. And this is after, I think, the first time they've seen each other since Theo was in the fire at the Ascension. And Sam says something pretty creepy, like he wants to lick the ash off of him to see if he can, like, I guess it was like taste the skin of other people. I didn't know, like the charred skin of others. I didn't know what that was about. I took it to a dark place, maybe.
You sure did. I thought he just meant like, did you hook up with someone else? I want to taste the other person on you.
Oh, maybe that too. I don't know. I like.
Oh,
I don't know. I was following the path of Sam into darkness here.
Exactly. You followed Sam,
which fits with the scene because, I mean, as Theo soon tells Sam, you are surrounded by darkness, and I don't really know who you are anymore, what you're capable of.
Well, and it's a theme that we're starting to get is what's the line between pleasure through S&M and domination and submissive and violence.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And it sounds like, I mean, we get the impression that for Sam those lines are getting quite blurred.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they kind of both talk about the fact that like someday Sam might kill Theo in a way that like neither one of them seems to really have an answer as to whether or not Sam's capable of that, right? But Sam does actively threaten to take away everything, including basically the identity that Theo's carved for himself through Sam's money.
Right.
Then they have that exchange where like they're maybe going to call 911, and it's not really 100% clear exactly what he's going to say. Like,
I think it was written for tension, but it didn't
fully land.
Make sense.
I don't think the 911 call needed to happen. I think it was strong enough without it,
Yeah, the breakup was happening. That's what we were there for, not that he's going to turn him in for, he doesn't know it because there's no evidence for anything besides he thinks he's dark.
Right. Theo says he's met somebody. That person is Adam.
Yeah.
And we see them connect after. So Adam leaves the newspaper after getting yelled at again by Gino for not treating stuff as the emergency level need to be treated as, basically. And so Adam walks home. We see that at this point he's being watched out of a side view mirror. I don't think we know who this is. Is it Sam? Is it somebody else? We're not fully sure. But Adam finds, well, it might not be Sam because we know Sam doesn't drive his own car. So it's who knows? It could be Whiteley or Big Daddy or somebody else. But Adam finds Theo on his front doorstep. Theo says, "You were right. I'm done with Sam." Confesses he can't stop thinking about him. I don't know. They're kind of a cute couple, right?
They're like Theo. I like these characters. Theo's grown on me a little bit. He was a little obnoxious in the beginning, but he's really turned out to be this kind of like guy who wants to find real love, or so we think. We'll find out. But what bothers me is it's supposed to be sweltering out there and all these people walking around in jeans, and Theo's wearing black leather pants, obviously no shirt, barely, because he's jacked. But why are you not in shorts?
Hey, Kris, fashion, bro. I mean, of all people, you got to know that.
It's all sweaty. Down there. And then you want to hook up with people? Oh, Lord.
I mean, hey, sweat is a lubricant.
Oh, God.
But they have a pretty passionate scene. Like there's an interesting like fade out as they kind of start to really get into their intimacy. And they wake up. Theo has to go somewhere, and Adam has like this weird ominous voicemail that I don't know. I didn't fully understand the voicemail before the power goes out.
It was it was a creepy crackly sound. I could not make it out, and we watch this without subtitles because it's not available on, because we're not streaming it. Yeah, so I'm not sure if we're supposed to make something out in there or not, but it does seem like it could possibly be what we later in the episode we hear, or we see Whiteley on the phone, and it could be some like him leaving a message perhaps.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of unclear at this point, just kind of ominous, right? But then he gets a call from Morris, hears about the blackout party at the warehouse, and decides he's going to head there. Meanwhile,
This
Mac
is
calls
like
in.
this is
Oh,
like
go
the
ahead.
part in the scary movie where, like in Scream, like, oh, there's a killer on the loose. There's 3 dead bodies. Let's have a teenage party over at that house.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. Like this is really the time you're
Yeah.
deciding to do that.
Let's all congregate in the same location because there's possibly multiple serial killers out there targeting our community. Let's.
But jumping ahead, this is exactly the frustration that Derek has, and then
Yep.
Adam kind of corroborates is like, why are you guys
What are
just
you
here
doing?
being? Yeah, you're putting yourself in immediate danger, just being like totally careless
Yep.
when this is going on. So it's not like they're totally oblivious to that, which I appreciate.
I mean, the smart ones. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Meanwhile, Mac and Patrick have a interaction in which Patrick, well, first of all, Mac is kind of pushing Patrick on like where are these leaks coming from that are appearing in Gino's newspaper, and that's when Pat finally kind of takes the initiative to come out of the closet to his captain. So we kind of, I mean, this is a series of like we see the blackouts happening and when it's happening for different people. So then it happens for Patrick at the, at the police station, and soon after we see him manning the switchboard when he gets that inbound call from Whiteley, who basically says he's going to go massacre people in the streets because when is he ever going to get this opportunity again?
Yeah, he's sick and tired of going to the bars that smell disgusting. Now he can just do it out in the open.
There you go. And we know already that like Whiteley has a little bit of an obsessive compulsive disorder, so it kind of tracks with that. And then Barbara shows up at Gino's house right before the blackout happened as well, Gino and Patrick's condo, with some more Pat intel. This time she found a leather mask. I don't think that this is insinuating that Patrick is Big Daddy. He doesn't have. I mean, we also see them in the park together later, so I don't think we know that.
Yeah, I think that's what she thinks it is, though.
I think that's what she thinks it is. It's not clear to me. I mean, Gino already knew he was into the leather stuff from the last time they had a confrontation, so
And
I
he
guess
says
it's
as
just
much.
right. So I don't fully know what maybe the mask is just like a step further in terms of like revealing what his kinks are. I don't know exactly what that's supposed to tell us.
She's like, she says like, I see a lot of you and me or something like that, and I'm just begging you to like just ask Patrick the truth because she's worried, and she says, I guess I didn't know him at all.
Right. Let me jump back to, well, let's stick with Patrick and Gino for a second, and then we'll revisit Adam. Patrick runs into Big Daddy in Central Park when he's kind of out looking for Whiteley, I think, at that point in time, swinging like one of those like Renaissance Morning Stars. Yeah. Clearly not a like fake vision, because that thing like really slammed into a payphone, I'm pretty sure. And Patrick even shoots at him at like point blank range though, and it doesn't seem to do anything. That was kind of a little bit.
So maybe here's a good point to bring up this question. Is Big Daddy real?
If you think that they're imagining the Morning Star, what about the Molotov cocktail?
He didn't throw that, right? Or did he throw that?
Did he throw that? Yeah.
Okay. Could be him. Could be a poser. Copycat. I've seen people referencing him as sort of an angel of death, like he shows up. Somebody threw the Molotov cocktail, that's true. But we also haven't actually seen anyone die, right? We've never seen anyone actually be murdered. We've seen dead bodies.
Yeah,
we have not seen anyone murdered.
Exactly, which is more the angel of death vibe, like appears right before somebody dies, but
right.
We've never actually seen the scene if they killed somebody.
So obviously there is someone killing people out there, but we haven't. Anyway, I'm just a little worried that I just hope we don't go the route where, like we did in Hotel, where the detective.
Is that all along or something?
I don't want to spoil it. I mean,
it's like a Sixth Sense vibe.
Yeah, or no, our seemingly protagonist is also the antagonist, the killer. Anyway, but so that was just something that I think Bryce had sent a message to me actually that I think That's a theory that's out there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But you're right. We did see the Molotov cocktail being thrown in, so that kind of throws that theory possibly a little bit. But
Hmm. Who knows? I mean, yeah. I mean, the other thing I was going to recall.
unless it was the doorman from Sam's
Well,
place.
no, but that's where it gets confusing. Is like it like again like that seems like a real person because Stu acknowledged the doorman, and I'm pretty sure it's a different physique. It's like a similar outfit but a different physique.
A little bigger.
Yeah. Anyway, a little bit tough to
Yeah.
decipher. So who knows for sure.
Either way,
Also, it's worth noting that Theo thinks that Big Daddy is dead.
he's
Apparently,
dead.
has that intel from Sam.
Hmm.
You
So
know, so that's out there for one reason or another. Yet unclear as how it fits into the storyline.
right, right. Well, that was a little bit of a tangent for you, but Patrick is found by his partner in the woods.
Patrick's found by his partner again. He doesn't find Big Daddy, and the next time we see Patrick, he's back at home with Gino, where he kind of he proudly says, "You know what? I finally did it. I finally came out. I am now out at work as a gay cop in the New York City Police Department." Which, as you said, is like the big deal, like a huge deal, and probably a big deal even today, I would imagine.
Hmm.
But a huge deal in the '80s, certainly, and we've already seen how homophobic the New York City Police Department is in this season. Um, but Gino doesn't seem to really, at this point, care as much about that. It's more about Patrick's ongoing lies, and he asks him about the mask. He demands the truth, and Patrick confesses that basically he's cheated a lot on Gino. He's really into the leather stuff. He's never really been interested in bringing Gino into the leather stuff. And that's kind of where Gino calls him out. Is it's like the thing is that like you get off on kind of the subversion, like being secretive about it and the lies and
Hmm.
stuff.
Yep.
And that might be something that they might not be able to get over in their relationship. Patrick's like insatiable craving for this kind of stuff. Um, and that's when Gino appears to have a heart attack. And we wake up. I don't think we learn it's not a heart attack. It's just he's very sick. Wake up at the hospital. They find Gino has a fever and an enlarged lymph node. And I think the nurse says he had the hallmarks of cat scratch fever. And I was
Hmm.
digging into this slightly before we got on here. And
Yeah.
there's a 1989 study that basically talked about how this cat scratch fever is like because it's like some kind of signifier of somebody who has a compromised immune system if you catch it, because um, I guess if you were to get scratched by a cat in this way and you didn't have a compromised immune system, it would become nothing. So if you get like this fever based on a cat scratch, you have here, the deduction is you have a compromised immune system. And that happened to be the case with a lot of people who had HIV. So it got connected to HIV in that way.
Yep.
Uh, and I mean, that kind of wraps the Patrick Gino storyline for this episode. Is there anything you want to say here about that?
Not with their storyline. I'm glad Gino's okay, but like I said, he's completely unraveled at this point, and it just seems so stressed and frustrated and spiraled into, a medical condition, which maybe explained why he has been freaking out so much. But his, I don't know. I hope we don't lose him too much, and he doesn't get sidelined, because he's a pretty great investigator for what's happening in the story. Although he keeps getting caught and almost murdered, so
I
he
know
needs
he's
to
had a rough
chill.
run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam picks up Adam in the car and basically suggests to Adam that he will bribe him to not see Theo anymore. At that point, basically, Adam turns him down.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think it's hard to tell exactly where this tension is going to go, but clearly Sam talks about himself, I think or is it early in this episode or last episode, being like a collector of people.
Hmm.
And you get the sense that Theo is one of his prized possessions in that realm, especially because he's
Yeah.
built him up into this celebrity photographer.
Right. And he says that, and I mentioned this earlier, but Theo, he has this issue with getting bored, and
Mhm.
then and once he gets bored, he tries to move on, but then he gets bored with that person. Then he always returns to Sam, and Sam even said like, don't come back this time, or whenever they broke up, he said something along those lines. So Adam sort of clued in a little bit more on possibly what Theo could do, or maybe it's Sam just being manipulative and trying to put a wedge in between them already so it doesn't happen, so he can keep his most prized possession, Theo.
Right. So Adam got picked up on the way to the warehouse with Sam, gets out of the car, does go to the warehouse, and that's where we already talked about who the artist who we think is Derek, basically shining a spot like a flashlight on all these people and being like, what are you doing in the dark corners? Like, this is exactly where you're going to get murdered. You need to wake up. And Adam kind of runs in and effectively says the same thing. Derek reveals the truth about how Hans and how he had got sick. So we're not just talking about, again, people getting murdered like with weapons. We're talking about dying through disease in it as well. So, I mean, they're effectively, I mean, the alarm's been raised and the message is going out at this point in time. But we do have this group of, like, I expect shortly after this, Derek, and then I don't know that we know the name of the guy who's like the proprietor of the warehouse.
Yeah, the head guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, and they are wandering in Central Park, and that's when they happen to stumble across Whiteley wielding
Head?
a head.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. That's the in the beginning. It was kind of hard to see as things were going down when the blackout happened because it's dark and I need to change the settings on my TV. But I thought that was a head. Okay.
Oh, it's a head, and I think maybe he has a bowling ball bag. I'm not entirely sure. He later says it's groceries and that it's expiring meat, which is pretty nasty. But they very courageously or stupidly follow him home and get into a very tiny elevator with him as the power goes out in the elevator. And, after trying to make pleasant conversation for a minute, he's like, why am I lying to you guys? I already know you're on to me, and I'm just going to murder you. And he whips out a giant knife just in time for the episode to end.
That was a spooky scene. That had tension. That was the biggest horror scene I think that we've had this season. There's been a few kind of creepy ones where the stalking and the big daddy and stuff like that, but getting into an elevator with no exit, when he stopped, it's like, come on, I'm holding it for you. I was like, oh no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then they get in. I was like,
there were a couple that were creepy. And well, I think this was last episode, the one where Patrick goes to the warehouse and then follows the guy like back into the shadows. Like, that felt ominous too, like something like something was going to jump out around him, or he was going to be attacked back there too. So there's been a couple scenes, but yeah, there was a lot of tension there because obviously we know who Whiteley is and what he's capable of.
Yeah,
he seems like a big dude, right? He's like got to be 6 something.
Yeah, I think he's fairly tall, and the two things I've seen him in, but yeah.
Um,
Doesn't seem the most particularly athletic.
No, he's not in. I mean, he's certainly not in the same shape as Isaac Powell or Charlie Carver or these guys. But he's not a small dude.
Right.
And that's kind of where the episode wraps. Basically, is with that brandishing of the knife in the tiny elevator. So I think for Derek and his poor friend, I can't imagine a happy ending.
Yeah. Have you seen the preview?
I did not stay to watch the preview.
They are. Well, it's in the preview, so it's not giving it away. They are still alive, but they are captured.
Oh, okay. So he's taking my prisoner. Well, I mean,
kind of remember how
Gino, so he's gonna like.
I think it's a similar stitch.
That's probably not the best idea to have followed him home in that way. So
right,
life without cell phones, right? It's kind of hard to think about, but it was a different time, and previously they could have called the cops on the cell phone as they were following him. Not that the cops are listening anyway in the 1980s, but
no, I feel like, thinking about this episode, I was trying to think about what was the purpose for the blackout, because generally when things happen, it's in service of the story. I don't think any of these things needed a blackout to happen. It's a cool thing to occur to up the tension, I guess. I guess that's why you used it then. Yeah, it's the device to ratchet up the tension because it's in the dark and you're fearful and crime's going up, and so that it does add some stakes that way. So that I'll take that back.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes, hit me.
Who is the killer? Is it someone we know? Or is there a killer? Is it just the ticks? Are there multiple killers?
Well, I think there's multiple killers for sure. Obviously, there's no doubt Whiteley's a killer.
Right.
Is Sam a killer? I kind of don't think so. I feel like it's too obvious. Is Patrick a killer? I kind of don't think so either.
If he is, that would be going the hotel route.
Yeah, I don't think Patrick's a killer either. And I don't think Gino is, obviously. I don't think Adam is, obviously. I don't know if there's another character who's a serial killer. I don't know. What do you think?
I could feel like Barbara has a secret that we don't know about yet because she's just being really weird.
Like, she is being really weird. I've got a complaint about Barbara, but I'll
Yeah.
save that for the rating of this episode.
Okay. Well, I'll just start doing mine then. Barbara's a little weird. I think Patrick still has a secret. Obviously Barbara's really pushing it and he keeps confessing more and more, but I don't know what more he can confess unless he's like, I'm a killer also.
Well, and clearly we know he has a penchant, like an appetite for violence
Violent.
after we see him use the cat o' nine tails.
Right. I do think I'm looking forward to seeing an actual death scene happen just so I can kind of get more information, but because clearly they're holding their cards close to their chest with how these happen. Unless it just turns out to be like It Follows and it's like a sexually transmitted killer.
It's like all metaphorical.
Yeah, which then it's so blatantly literal of how AIDS is spread or HIV is spread that I'd be disappointed if it is just that.
Yeah.
At the end, they're like, and
Well,
we've
it'd be hard
discovered.
to. Well, I mean, obviously, it'd be hard to explain how some of the, I don't know, the fact that like people are like seeing Big Daddy and being chased by him in the park. I don't know. I think I would have some issues with it too if that's what it ends up ultimately being.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, we're only 4 episodes. Well, we're already 4 episodes in, so they have 6 to go. This episode, I feel like spun its wheels. I mentioned that earlier, and primarily in the Sam and in the relationships in Sam and Theo. That was like we've already heard them argue before. We didn't need all like the fake out of I'm going to call the cops because there's nothing you could say. And the Gino and Patrick, as well acted as they are, we've been down this path before. We've seen their relationship
Every episode. Yeah.
You're not doing this, you're not doing that, you should do this. Okay, then he does, like, it's like we got it. But they, like, all these actors are doing a fantastic job with it. It's just let's keep it moving here. The slow burn's still happening. Get back to the investigation or a chase scene. So I did like it in some senses when they're investigating. I'm not liking it when we're dealing with relationship beats that we've already hit.
Fair enough.
So many questions still, but I am excited to see where it goes. I would give this episode I'm gonna give it 3.75 Mai Tais. What about you? What do you think?
I think you nailed a lot of the same feedback. I was gonna say that Gino in particular, his character, I feel like this episode kind of starts to expose him as being, I don't know, I felt like some parts of him were just kind of on loop, where it was like, we've seen you yell at Adam before for not being alarmed enough about the situation.
I feel like Adam's working his ass off. He was just in a fire also. Like, cut him some slack.
Well, and he yells at him for it 2 times in this episode.
Yeah.
2 times in this episode. You know, we see him go to every bathhouse and interview everybody, which that was fine. I mean, that was also partly our last episode too. Yeah. And I actually liked his interview with Patty LaPone. But then, yeah, again, you know, looping the same conversation with Patrick again. And I do feel like they did not need to have Leslie Grossman / Barbara show up with an additional leather find.
I know.
I feel that almost just seemed like another way to see her. I feel like I would have preferred it if, like, Gino, here's how I would have done it. I think Gino should have found, because clearly Patrick has a leather stash at home. it's hiding. I think Gino should have found Patrick's current leather stash and questioned him about it since he'd already lied. And then Barbara shows up with the mask later or something like that, right? Or vice versa, where like she shows up with the first round and he's like, oh, this is something from my past. And then he finds the mask on the house now. And it's like, oh, you're still doing this shit, right? Like, I feel like either one of those ways we could have like made work more. But the fact that it's just like Barbara's just going to keep showing up
with
like
Chekhov's gun.
Like, yeah, she's gonna have like handcuffs and a whip and be like, "Oh, I just found this." It's like, how many more secret places do you have in your house that you're still finding things? So I agree with you that part felt a little bit rewound, and I also think that you're like, from just a setting perspective, the Blackout was kind of fun, but
yeah,
I don't know how much we really got into the implications of the Blackout, because we like. People were already getting murdered on the streets before. I know Whitley's like, I can run a rampage, but like, it's not like people weren't getting murdered in Central Park and on the streets and stuff otherwise before this.
True.
So I mean, I think for those reasons, I think it's like this episode. I think 3.75 is a good space for it, just compared to the rest of the season. Because again, it felt a little bit like, if we're thinking about things that got progressed here, Patrick came out to Mac. That was the thing. Theo left Sam for Adam. That's kind of a plot progression. And then, of course, I guess Hans dying, which is just another dead body, but we're not fully sure what the hell like the implications on the plot for that are. But otherwise, like, am I missing? I mean, I guess the guy's following Whiteley Helm at the end, but we're not really sure how that's going to play out quite yet either.
We could have condensed the 3 and 4 possibly.
Yeah. I mean, look at we got through talking about both of these relatively quickly compared to last week.
I mean, again, we still enjoyed them, but just like, all right, pick it up.
I guess, well, you could say opportunities for character development, which I think there were, but I also feel like the character and development got a little bit muddled with some of the repetitiveness.
Right, and we already knew these character beats. Let's see them evolve or grow or make a different choice that forces them to grow, or something happen to them that makes them grow. Gino's getting the most things happening to him, poor guy.
Yeah. I feel like we can't if Patrick has another secret, we can't hold out on it that much longer, because I feel like we're just getting strung along. Like, it's got to be, it's either all his cats are out of the bag, or there's the big secret needs to come out next episode.
Yeah.
But so that's right, man. I think that puts us at 3-3. That's 6, 7, 7.5. So not bad. I mean, I think overall the season's is like we've been talking about this. It's definitely compelling. I'm excited to see what's happening next week. I'm learning a lot about this time in history. I'm liking all the allusions to a variety of different things. I want to see where it's going. So in any way we're being critical, I think it's only in the context of looking at each episode from episode to episode, and trying to be kind of the pseudo critics we are. But definitely enjoying it, and looking forward to next week. Kris, where can people find you between now and next week?
Instagram and Twitter at Kris Husted, Kris with a K, and our YouTube. What about you, Tyler?
You can find me on those platforms as well, under the handle TJMoss11. But also, you can reach out to us at thisamericanhorrorstory@gmail.com, or on Facebook at facebook.com/thisamericanhorrorstory. Thank you all for joining us on this late evening. You're not up as late as we are, but you were up late too, watching till midnight in most cases. So yeah, this season is just pushing us to be up late. Until next week, man, episodes 5 and 6 again this week. This season's flying by, but until then, happy hauntings.